Have you ever thought about why fasting is such an important thing in the Christian faith? Is it really just about not eating? Or is there something more, something spiritual, that happens when we deny the flesh in order to strengthen the spirit? Because if fasting were just about going hungry, then all the people who skip breakfast would be full of God's power. So, what makes fasting so different for a Christian? Fasting is one of the most impactful spiritual practices in Christianity. It is more than a mere ritual. It is a call to get closer to God, to quiet the world around us, and to get in tune with God's will. Throughout the Bible, fasting was used by prophets, apostles, and even Jesus to gain guidance, be strengthened, and experience breakthrough. However, many of us today have lost the true meaning of fasting. Truth be told, most people associate fasting with misery. They picture fasting as long hours without food, a growling stomach, and constantly checking the time, so they can be done with it. Some even consider fasting as a punishment, something we do to earn God's favor or to prove our spirituality. However, this is a big misconception. Fasting was never meant to be bodily starvation. Its focus has always been on the spirit. The major problem is that people have come to see fasting as a mere religious act, whereas in fact, it should be a spiritual bond. One can fast from food and still not have a clean and pure mind. One may shut the fridge door, but at the same time open social media. One can stop eating yet fail to start listening. Real fasting is not merely the absence of food, but rather the presence of God. It is that silent moment when the flesh gives up and the spirit becomes empowered. And that is where most people fail to see it. The Bible talks about various kinds of fasting that God acknowledged and appreciated. One could think of personal fasting, the kind of fasting David practiced when he humbled himself before God. In Psalm 35, verse 13, David said, "I humble myself with fasting." In doing so, he was saying, "God, I cannot do without you, even if it means doing without my comfort." Personal fasting is that secret surrender oneself, when you go before God not to win his favor, but to be changed by him. It is what you do when you have lost your way, when your prayers go unanswered, or when you carry sorrow in your heart. It is in that quiet place that fasting becomes your way of showing your need for God and your complete dependence on him. Also, there is communal fasting, a time when believers share the same goal. Indeed, fasting and prayer that come from the unity of family, a church, or even a nation is a very powerful thing that can stir heaven itself. In the book of Jonah 3, the king of Nineveh, after hearing God's severe warning, proclaimed a fast for everyone, even the animals. The scripture says, God saw their works, that they turned from their evil ways, and he relented. That is the power of fasting. People coming together as one. Where judgment was deserved, mercy was received. Even now, when followers of Christ unite in prayer and fasting to ask for revival, healing, or peace, God acts in wonderful ways. Furthermore, spiritual fasting is another type of fasting that Jesus exemplified in the wilderness. For 40 days and nights, he didn't eat anything, not to establish his holiness, but to prepare his heart for spiritual warfare. The devil tempted him, but Jesus wasn't moved because his spirit was strong. Spiritual fasting is a discipline. It's how you develop spiritual sensitivity and strengthen your inner self for upcoming challenges. It is a method through which you quiet your human nature so you can clearly hear God's voice saying, "This is the way, walk in it." There's also occasional or partial fasting, sometimes referred to as a Daniel fast. Daniel refused the royal foods and chose to eat simple meals, giving up meat, wine, and other luxuries. This was not about limiting himself. It was about devotion. Partial fasting is powerful because it teaches self-control and dependence on God, even while managing daily tasks. It reminds us that fasting doesn't always mean total abstinence. Sometimes it's simply about being intentionally moderate. And lastly, there is lifestyle fasting, living a life of continuous surrender. It is when fasting goes beyond a specific period and becomes a habit of the heart. Such a person chooses to deny anything that competes with the presence of God, pride, greed, gossip, or comfort. Lifestyle fasting is less concerned with food and more focused on the heart, a daily attitude that says, "God, I want you more and me less. Every type of fasting has a purpose: to gain understanding when you lack clarity, to be empowered when you are weak, to intercede for others when they have no voice, to bring your heart back to God when it has drifted away. And when you fast with the right heart, something powerful happens. You come to realize that fasting isn't about forcing God to notice you. It's about giving your full attention to Him. It's the act of removing distractions so your spirit can finally connect with the one who truly satisfies. Now, let's return to Scripture, to one of the clearest demonstrations of the power of fasting. The Jewish people in the book of Esther were about to be wiped out. Queen Esther, a young woman, was afraid but determined to go before the king and plead for her people. She knew the danger. If the king hadn't summoned her, going before him could mean death. Before she did it, however, she sent a message to her people. Go, gather all the Jews in Susa and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days. My maids and I will do the same. Then, even though it is against the law, I will go to the king. If I perish, I perish. After 3 days, the fearful queen turned into a woman of faith and courage. She walked into the king's chamber, and when he extended his scepter to her, her people were delivered. That is the power of fasting. It turns fear into faith, doubt into courage, and despair into deliverance. It reminds us that when we are weak, He is strong. Fasting is not just a spiritual exercise. It is a sacred encounter. It draws you closer to God, purifies your motives, and strengthens your faith. It's not about what you give up. It's about what you gain: clarity, peace, and a deeper connection with God, your Creator. If you've ever fasted, I'd love to hear about your experience. What did God teach you through it? Share your thoughts in the comments, and let's learn from one another. And if this message inspired you, please like this video and subscribe. Don't forget, fasting isn't only about emptying yourself. It's about making room for God.